We're back working on the Zook. Now, we had to pull the motor out because I never welded the back side of these coil towers. And also, if you can see there, I wanted to weld the back side of my panhard mount. Now, I actually wrapped that panhard mount right around the chassis so to avoid it tearing off. You can actually see where I put a hammer mark in there. That's where my vacuum pump on the motor goes. Now, I've always had vacuum assisted brakes, except I had an auxiliary vacuum pump, and for whatever reason it used to cut on and off. Could be a wiring issue, or I wasn't sure what happened, and after experiencing that a couple times, that's when the axle blew in the diff, and I was just like, do I get rid of it or do I put bigger diffs in? But long story short, this time I'm going to just put the proper vacuum pump on the back of the motor. Now, I have got... So on the back of the motor here, we just put a seal in here, and I put this plate across here just so that seal can't push out, because that does have oil pressure pushing against it, because the vacuum pump is oil fed. But the vacuum pump, sorry, is about 70 mil in width. So we have about 50 mil from the back of the head here to the firewall. So we're going to have to clearance that extra by pushing that firewall in a little bit in this area. So what we'll do first is we'll put this vacuum pump back on and double check our measurements, and then we'll go over and see what we can do with the firewall. They didn't actually push back as far as I'd liked. There's nothing behind here, there's just a big main rib here. Our just got to watch out for our heater box, because that's right. I only had a little bit of room there, but enough that I would have had enough clearance to press it in with. I think now we'll just have to stick the motor back in with the vacuum pump and just check the clearance then. So we've now gone from a 2-inch inlet to a 3-inch inlet. I just put stainless in there just so it doesn't rust. And this bottom section here, I sort of shaped around the big pipe just so it has a nice good seal. Once that dries, I'll then go through on the inside. But because this is the dirty side of the filter, it's not going to matter too much, even though that Sikaflex will seal it really well. I was sort of walking through my local wrecking yard and looking at different airboxes in different cars, and came across this one out of a Hyundai, and it's nice and thin, fits perfect in the location in between our coil tower and our guard. So we ended up with just over a finger width of gap in the back there, which that's plenty room. We've also put a banjo fitting on the top there with our vacuum line hooked straight up to our booster. I just got that new mount done, but that's just going to sit on the intercooler, something like that. But just to stop it from chafing, I've got this old truck tube here. I'll just cut out a sort of a rectangle patch and just sit it in here just to stop it from rubbing when you go down those corrugated roads or something. My knife blade is too blunt. You can hear that pump's working now. I just had to crack this 90 here and bleed more air out. I thought when we first had trouble bleeding it last time, we actually put this brass bung in the side of the intercooler to get most of the air out. But when I redid the intercooler system this time, I made sure that reservoir is higher than both the intercooler and the front radiator, so to eliminate all air issues, which by just cracking that 90 there, the pump kicked in straight away and it's working as it should now. How terrible does that blue silicon look? That's all they had in stock, so I'll just have to roll with it for now. Our intercooler system's all finished off. It all tucks in there nicely. We got good access to our belts. We don't need to pull nothing apart to replace belts or do anything like that like we had to do before. Our airbox is all finished off. Now, the issue with the old airbox setup is the air had to travel 2 meters from the top of the snorkel to the inlet of the turbo, and I think that was the main culprit of why this had such bad throttle response. But now we've got a huge improvement. Our inlet's real short. I'm unsure what I'm going to do in the back here yet, whether I come out the guard with something or go through the bonnet, or I'm not quite sure. But our wiring's all tucked up and looking neat. We got good access to our fuses if we got to replace them. All our paintwork's finished off. We got coolant in it, there's oil in it, so we're pretty much ready to fire it up. Before we do though, we just got to jump underneath and tackle this exhaust. just got to get some aluminium wire, and I like to wrap this heat shield in aluminium wire. Previously I've had it where you'll get mud or something on it and then you'll hit it with a pressure washer and it unravels it. So that aluminium wire seems to fix the issue. But this is the original hot dog that I had in it. I had to cut 100 mil out of it, so it's going to be interesting to see how loud it is now. We've just got a nice little bracket on the exhaust. We've kinked this back here just to clear the links in the back. I have flexed it up either way with it tack welded and it all clears. So she's running again. I'm surprised it's actually not too bad, seeing as we cut that muffler in half pretty much. Well, it started up all right. Glow plugs worked, everything, so our wiring is all good. Cutting that hot dog in half was pretty much, it's just got more of a turbo whistle now. It's not so much louder. I think what's left in that hot dog just soaks up that bit of tinniness. Since it's a 2.5 inch stainless exhaust, without a muffler in it, it gets real tinny and it sounds terrible. So I think if I do the exhaust ever again, I'll go to a 2 inch, just your mild steel exhaust tubing rather than the stainless. The same thing happened on the Cruiser. When we put the stainless in that, it put a real tinny sound to it, and it just doesn't sound good. All right, exhaust is all on, engine base finished off besides power steering pump, but I got a little secret installed for that, so I'm going to leave that for now. We've got to jump into the back and do those wheel wells and cover up those coilover towers. I went ahead and already cut the bottom to the contour of the floor. I was just trying to work out the best way to shape it so it doesn't look too out of ordinary. So I've it's not a dead 90 degrees, but we have some angle there to sort of keep with the shape of the car. And then I think we'll just weld on our sides and sort of notch it round to suit. I think that'll look pretty good. We'll just have to let that cool so it doesn't warp it too much, but that's sort of the look that's going to be in the car. I reckon that's actually not bad at all. And our line, like you can see, we've got a nice good seam there. So once we put a bit of seam sealer on, it'll almost be invisible. And then once we carpet, it'll be nice, and I think that'll be a good finish. So I've got it to a point now where it's sitting in there on its own. But I forgot the one thing I said earlier that I got to do, and that's mark the hole. So I've got my texter here. This just pulls off. I'm hoping I can just slide, because the texter is almost the size of a 16mm bolt. So I should be able to just stick the texter in like that, push it back far enough, which we've got enough clearance, pull the lid off, which I should have done a second ago. Now if we pull that, sit that about there, put our cover back on, which just sits in there like that. Now if we come around here, I'm hoping it stays in place enough that we can reach in and just put a dot, which it's going to work perfectly. Sweet. It's definitely not that hole, but it's that one. So now we'll get the center punch, punch that, drill that, and then that's pretty much all ready to weld in. Now I've actually gone ahead and done this side, and what the mistake I made on this side is I did a whole bunch of spot welds each side, and then I was like, oh, there was laying in pretty good, so I ended up doing a couple beads every so often, and that just warped the hell out of it. You can't tell now because I put some heat into it and shrunk it off and tried to straighten it up the best I can. But on this one, I'm just going to do a series of tack welds everywhere, and that'll be fine. We'll stop the distortion anyway. I should have kept doing it with that side, but I haven't got much experience with doing sort of sheet metal work, and I've obviously doing beads on such thin material. Well, it's actually 1.2 thick, but I was going to get 0.8 or whatever, but that was just too thin, and I haven't got enough experience with welding that thinner material. So besides the ugly Sikaflex everywhere, once that does dry, we're that side's all ready to be finally finished painted. All the wheel well in here, I've got to get color coded paint and just paint it all, and then we can cut our carpet round and at a later date wrap these in carpet. But as you can see, our hole here, when you want to pull your coilover out, you got access to your bolt here. Now a socket doesn't fit in this hole, being a 24mm socket, but you've got good access to the inside to undo our bolt. So if we come around here, you can see there we got good access here, so we can get a spanner each side, and that's done. So I finished cleaning it all up. It's all ready to be welded in. I went ahead and seam sealed it all and put, it's like a bed lining product. It's some sort of Raptor coat, but it lays on really thick. The texture of it's quite coarse. You maybe sort of not really see it in the camera, but it's all ready to weld in. So let's pop it into place. Just got to get some rubber grommets to put in these bolt holes here. But how good did the back turn out? They don't even look that bad. I thought they were going to look really bad, and when I was welding them in, I was like, but they turned out, I'm quite happy with how they turned out. Still got plenty of room. I can put my camping fridge still back in here, put a heap of other things in here. I can still lay down and sit in the back here. Like, when I was first designing the rear suspension, I thought I was going to have a brace that run over there, but I'm lucky in the Vitara, in the back of the chassis here, there's a tube that runs either side, so I could use that. And I'm glad I did use that, because look at the room we've still retained. Once I put some carpet on them, I don't even really think you'd notice them unless you were to look in the side and see the coilover. But, well, that was a solid 4 weeks worth of work. Now, I really wanted to have this car running and driving by the time I published this video, but our rear axles and drive shaft held us up. Now, the rear axles we can't machine up because the lathe's broken at the minute. The rear drive shaft, because of the pinion flange and the Vitara uni joint, it doesn't locate in the flange. Now, I've put the front one in, but the front one's not doing highway speeds where the back is, so it's not optimal. So we'll have to graft a Hilux uni in there, and I've yet to track down one of those. So in the next one, we'll be for sure driving it. We might even go out bush and just see how it performs. See you in the next one.